Welcome to the Visual Storytelling Podcast. In this episode, I sit down and have a conversation with Vicki Lovegrove, who is a graphic designer with 22 years experience within the industry. Now, we talk about what graphic design actually is, the benefits of hiring a graphic designer, and why it's better to do so over you thinking that you can do it yourself. And they are just a couple of the key takeaways from this conversation. This conversation is full of some brilliant insight into graphic design and definitely worth checking it out. So let's get into this conversation. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. Just explain or introduce yourself, who you are, I sound like Cilla Black, who you are, what you do, where you come from.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a husband.
No.
Yeah, my name's Vicki Lovegrove. My business is 73 Design. I've been working as a graphic designer for a very long time. And I started my business 22 years ago. Prior to that, I worked as a graphic designer in lots of different settings. I've worked in agencies, I've worked in marketing agency, worked in printers, I've worked at a university. So I've been in-house, client side, and I've also been in agencies. So I've got a very broad design setting experience, and then I was made redundant in 2003, and did a bit of freelancing, and then decided to start my own business. So that was 22 years ago.
There you go. So where are you currently based then, Vicki?
I'm based in Burton-on-Trent. I'm originally from Milton Keynes, hence the accent. And I did all my training and most of my working life. My employed working life was in Northampton, mainly, because that's where I went to college. But yeah, I was, like I say, I went self-employed, and then within a couple of years, we moved up here, and I had to start my network.
Yeah. So currently Burton-on-Trent, but presumably you can do remote.
Yeah, I work fully remote. I work in my studio in my house. My clients have been all over the shop, really. I had a period where I had a lot of work coming out of the Netherlands. I've worked with people in the States. I only work with people in the UK at the moment, but they're not UK businesses as a whole. I work with teams in different countries. So
So
fully
you're
remote.
international.
Yes, I am international.
You're an international business. There you go. Not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah.
So I was going to sort of ask you what locations you cover, but
Yeah, it is
globally
everywhere.
is the answer to that, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it is globally, as long as there's it makes sense. I don't go chasing work abroad. There's plenty of really great people who work locally to businesses, but it's when there's a global business,
yes,
and they need somebody in the UK to help them. That's when I get involved.
So how do you find it differs between working with a UK based company to that of an international one? Presumably there's similarities.
There are similarities, but what I will say is, in my experience, I mainly work with design teams that are in Germany. They're really organised, and they're a joy to work with, quite frankly. But that's because a lot of my clients are in healthcare, and so their main design team is usually in Germany, and then they've got marketing team in the UK, and I support the UK marketing team. So I won't do all the big graphics for those, like the all the concept work and stuff that gets done with the main team in the main country. But where there's lots of collateral that needs to be created, I can be quicker
Yeah.
doing it in the UK, because you're going backwards and forwards, and you're queuing up work in somebody else's studio, whereas I can just jump on it in the UK. So for those sort of businesses, it's a lot of internal comms, exhibition stands, things that they need quickly and locally. And they'll probably still use their German studio to get the main brochure in English, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't get involved in that so much with some of these people. But when I worked with the company in the Netherlands, that was different. I did all the creative there. They were a main part of the business, but they weren't who introduced me to the business. I was working with Ireland. Yeah, so it's just, yeah, it just depends, really.
Wonderful. So let's move on then to the benefits of hiring an individual such as yourself. I've got some points here, but I'll open up to you first. So what are the benefits of hiring a graphic designer over people thinking that they can do it themselves?
Well, the main thing is, yes, if you can pick up software, you can, in theory, do graphic design. But you're not doing graphic design. And that's what people don't understand. People think graphic design is just making things look nice. And, some of my work I do, that is all anybody wants. But graphic design isn't that. Graphic design is visual engineering. And it's about creating solutions visually that improve a business. The rest is decoration. So what you can do in Canva and other available software, and you think you're doing graphic design, you're not doing graphic design. You're just decorating. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you need. But where the problem occurs is where there's lots of inconsistencies across the brand that you have created, and inconsistencies confuse people. They reduce trust, and it doesn't matter how brilliant you are at what you do, if the graphics are not right and don't support what you do, people can smell it a mile off, and there's doubt instantly. It's like when you get a email from your bank and you think, oh, I don't normally get an email from my bank. And then if you took the time to just stop, don't read it, just absorb it, you will notice the graphic inconsistencies. That was a moment that you noticed them, but you've got to pause and then really take it in, because they're fake, So working with a graphic designer ensures that everything is consistent, and that's sort of down to how colors are broken down, the fonts that are used, spacing around things, everything, and ensuring that things get produced properly. So if you've designed a logo in Canva, for example, I'm going to use Canva as an example because of their terms and conditions. If you use their graphical assets to create that logo, you don't own your logo. Whereas if you use a graphic designer, you can negotiate owning that logo. Now, personally, for me, once I've designed it and somebody's paid for it in full, it belongs to them, and that's in my terms. And I will put it in writing if they need it. Some people license logos. There's all sorts of ways around it, but ultimately the creative belongs to the person who created it, and that's in law.
Yeah.
And you have to negotiate that. But if you're working with a big firm like Canva and they've dropped in all these lovely little twiddly bits and you think, oh, I like that, I'm going to stick that in my logo, you no longer own that logo.
Yeah,
And it's
I have I have this conversation quite often with people when it comes to um, photography, and they'll take a snap, they'll run a filter through it through an app, and it's a similar conversation. It's That's all well and good, but you're basing your look off of that filter. That third party app can remove that filter at any point, and then you're starting again.
yeah,
You're then literally having to re-establish your look and your brand. Um, I think there's some similarities there, isn't there, between sort of the photography and the graphic design element based on what you've just said there.
mm,
Um, so that's certainly, and one of the points I was going to ask was what are the benefits of hiring a professional graphic designer, and that is just it. What you just said,
yeah.
isn't it?
It
Um,
is the professionalism that is the benefit.
mm,
And I understand businesses starting out don't feel they can afford to do that. And that's fine. It's fine. You know, cobble something together if you think that's appropriate, if you don't have the money, and do your best to get your business off the ground because that's the most important thing ultimately. But there will come a time where you can't get any further, and having your brand identity sorted out will help you get further. So if you want to move into different markets, you want to sell different products and services, or you want to start pitching yourself to larger businesses, they want to see themselves reflected back. And if you go in with a with logo on your letterhead or on your website and business card or whatever, and it looks like you've made it yourself, they're going to take one look at it and think, oh God, well, they're too cheap for us.
mm.
Because surprisingly, and people forget this, people don't always buy the cheapest. They buy what is in line with their values. And if you don't look like you're in line with their values, then they won't buy from you.
No, and that's so important. That in itself is a huge takeaway there, isn't it? People buy from people that are aligned to their values.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to get political, but what's currently happening in the world at the
Mm.
moment really illustrates that.
Yeah.
And we're taking it down to a micro level and using it in marketing. But ultimately, you buy from your tribe. And if you go to work in a suit and you use a particular type of software and your offices look a particular way, you want to be buying from people when they come into your space, reflect that back. And it's exactly the same with marketing. The first moment anybody sees anything is usually your website. So, or they might have met you at an event and seen some literature you've got. They might love you, but that literature or that website and that logo will put doubt into their minds if it doesn't align with their values. So it's always worth considering that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Just going back to something that you said, for those listening who either don't know or uncertain, at what point is it time to outsource to a professional? So they've started a business, they've built it to a point, and they're now looking um, to approach bigger clients or more clients, and they're un they're either unsure or they don't know at what point do they have, is there a kind of a ceiling that people reach before saying I now need to take this to the next level, or does it vary for business to business?
I think it varies. I used to say to people that you could get away with doing stuff yourself for a year or two.
Right.
And often people came to me where they were coming up to a 3, 5, sort of 7 year period of change. So usually your business has been going for a bit and you know you've there's growth and you want to move into different areas, or you want to up who you're selling to. That's a period of change. And often I found people would come to me about a 3-year mark, and they go, right, I want to rebrand, or I want to refresh my
Mm.
logo. This isn't working for me anymore. And the whole activity of doing that is really great marketing, because and PR, because it tells people you're growing, you're investing in your business, and it's a really positive change. So it's really, really good for the business. And then often I'd see people at a 7-year, 5 to 7 year mark, where again they're thinking of major change. They might be thinking of succession, selling, what's coming next. Particularly in larger businesses, they have a very fast turnover. They take change really seriously, and
Mm.
they move, they have it all planned, and they move on. And again, if you're selling to investors, you want investors involved, or you're looking to sell your business, they're looking to see you're investing yourself, and that rebrand catches their attention and can help you sell your business. I've been involved in a few exercises like that. I used to think you could probably get away with doing it yourself for a year or two. I'm not convinced these days. And I'm not saying that because I think, everybody should spend thousands and thousands of pounds a month to start up their business on a logo. I don't. But I think it's a lot quicker than it used to be because of the way the world is. The world has become even more visual than it was before. And turnover of businesses seems to be much faster in my experience. So you really do have to sort of get your ducks in a row a little bit quicker. But there's no hard and fast rule. It is about your business. I mean, I do know businesses who have never gone down this route and are really successful word of mouth businesses. So it's not appropriate for everybody. And they don't even have websites.
Right.
It's
Okay.
just about the person in the business and their network. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but I think it is quicker. And I think if you're looking to make change in your business, invest in your business, and it is an investment. It's not an overhead. It's not a spend. It's not a nice to have. It's an investment. And people who invest in design get a better return on investment. I mean, there was a statistic about, it's a while ago now, from the Design Council, and it was like for every pound spent on design, you got a £2.20 return, and that was years ago. That's going to be so much more now, because of the way the world is. Social media, everybody's much more visual. People love looking at things, and they are quicker to judge. So it is really important.
Yeah. Do you do you find people who are going through a rebrand or who have, let's say, for the first 12 months done something themselves using a third party app, are they reluctant to change or are they open to it in your experience?
Again, that varies. I mean, yeah, I mean, if they come to me in the first place and get a quote, they want the change.
Yeah.
They might not want to spend the money, but it doesn't, it's not expensive. It's one of those things. It's an investment, like all investments. You might invest in a car, and I spoke to somebody a while back, and they wanted a brochure, and they needed photography for this brochure, and it needed to be really classy photography because the type of business they wanted to elevate themselves and stand above um, foreign imports of what they did. And I was like, well, you really got to push the British angle. And it's about your people. They didn't have a high turnover of staff or anything like that. And this guy was standing there telling me how he'd had a electric point put in at home for his electric Range Rover and all this stuff. And I quoted him about 2 grand for some photography, which he could use across all his social media, which he was about to do, and for the leaflet and the printing and, all this stuff. And I was like, well, you really got to push the British angle. And it's about your people. They didn't have a high turnover of staff or anything like that. And this guy was standing there telling me how he'd had a electric point put in at home for his electric Range Rover and all this stuff. And I quoted him about 2 grand for some photography, which he could use across all his social media, which he was about to do, and for the leaflet and the printing and it really was modest amount of money, and he wouldn't go for it.
No.
So you can't convince all the people
No.
all the
No.
time. It's like he valued his house and his car and what people can see on the
Yeah.
outside, and he didn't really appreciate
Yeah.
how to get him to that next level. He had to do the rest as well.
Yeah. I do think as well that the majority of people in how they view this an investment such as graphic design, photography, video, they see it as let's use the £2,000 as an example. Let's say that they were going to refresh every 5 years. I'm not going to do the math now because I'm not that quick, but rather than saying, oh, it's £2,000 over 5 years, well, it's not, is it? Because if you break it down per month, it's a lot easier to understand and sort of comprehend. That's the cost, that's the return of investment I'm getting.
Mm.
Especially over, I mean, 5 years is probably a bad example. I should have said over 12 months. But
It's often less than the price of the coffee that you pick up in your electric car on the way to your office, is how
absolutely.
much you have
Yeah.
to spend minimally on brand identity, really.
Yeah,
And it also
absolutely.
depends, this particular person was in manufacturing. They weren't going to get a 2, 5, even 10,000 return on that. They would have got multiples of that because of the sort of business they were looking for.
Yeah. Do you think that's one of the sort of main hurdles of being a creative, is trying to change people's mindsets on how they look at the benefits of what it is that you do?
I used to think that. I don't think that anymore. I think the main hurdle we have as creatives is our own mindset.
Right.
You get hung up with the people that say no to you, and they're not your customer.
Mm.
And I used to think that as well. Oh, this guy's contact me and I've done a quote, and then it's no. Or since the pandemic, we don't even get no's, do we? We just get ghosted. And you think, oh, it's me. I'm too expensive. Maybe I should drop my prices. No, they're just not the right person for you. They're not. And this was really great that they said no or they ghosted you at this point, because how is the behavior going to escalate if you work with this person or this business? So I think we have to change the way we think and stop worrying about what other people think. It's great to educate people, tell them why you are the value that you are. That's really important. And then they choose. You can't force them to choose. And they have a lot of choice um, in the industry at the moment. But what I have found is, in the past, where I've had clients and I've worked with them, and then they've said, oh, actually, we're going to move, we're going to go to a bigger agency, we feel this, that, and the other. And then they've gone, and then they've had a really terrible experience. The customer service isn't there, there's no response, they're treated as one of many customers and not given that personal treatment which individual creatives can give. You know, I, I've used a photographer and she will message me and say, it's been 5 years since your last set of photos, you will have aged. And she can say that, you know,
Yeah.
are you looking for more right now? And, maybe, maybe not. But as an individual, you gain a better relationship, I think, with the people you work with. People buy from people, and just because people say no to you, it's not really to do with you. It's their own issue. Your right person will come along and they will repeatedly buy from you.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I always think people come to me and the first thing they ask is price. I'm not going to get that job. I will tell them everything that I need to tell them because I'm polite, but I know I won't get that job. And since I've put my prices on my website, like a from price.
Yeah.
I don't get the inquiries that I used to, so I have less people wasting my time,
Mm.
which is great.
Yeah, well, I think it works both ways, doesn't it? It's they're not wasting your time, they're not wasting their time either, are they?
Yeah,
So they know
yeah,
from the outset that 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 price is too high for me, so I'll go elsewhere. So I think that's a good thing. And uh, like you say, with regards to small independents, I think it's a bit like independent boutiques and coffee shops. You will always get a better coffee and a better service from those types of places because they're more invested than the bigger companies.
they really care. And I'm not saying the big companies don't care, they really do care as
Mm.
well. But they've got so many other things going on and
Yeah,
things can slip. And if your priority is customer service and how you want to be treated, you're better off using an independent or a smaller firm, um, and not worrying about um, how they're going to cope. I had a new client last year and he was asking me all these questions, about will I have the time to do stuff? Would if they send me something last minute? And I said to him, look, don't worry about it. It's my time. I'll manage it. You'll get the job done. And he was like, oh, that's what I wanted to hear.
fantastic. Yeah,
And just be yourself and be honest with people. And if they like you, they'll buy from you.
I think that's the key there, isn't it? If they like you, they will buy from you.
Yeah. And,
Um,
in networking, it's a well used phrase, know, like,
yeah,
trust. And if people like you, they want to get to know you. Once they get to know you, they'll know if they can trust you or not. You know, people tell you who they are the moment you meet them. You just have to be listening.
yeah, brilliant. So, Vicky, as well as graphic design, you also offer coaching as well, don't you?
Yes,
Tell us a bit
yes.
about your coaching.
Yeah, so I I retrained as a coach in 2019, thinking 2020 would be my year. um, yeah. So the idea was to work with people within the creative industries, people who have lost their confidence, people who are stuck in a rut, and that is mainly who I work with. I also work with other people who consider themselves creative, but they don't necessarily do a creative role. But most of the people I've worked with videographers, motion graphics people, graphic designers, marketing people, and they have one thing in common. They're usually really successful at what they're doing, but they're stuck in a loop and they cannot get any joy from what they're doing anymore. And it is always 100% that they have no goals. And so I work with them to get themselves out of the loop, set a course on a map and find a route there, and and I give them the tools that they need to travel on that map and get over all the obstacles that they're going to meet. And, they work with me some people work with me for a few months, which is a minimum that I work with because you can't build on change in one session. Um, some work with me for years and they like to check in with me almost. Sometimes they like to show me their work
Mhm.
like a creative director, although I don't really offer that, but they like to share what they're working on. I love seeing what people are working on because I'm a working creative, and it's just lovely to see what other people do.
Do you find you get
But
inspired by that as well?
absolutely,
Mm.
yeah, I've worked with some brilliant people. There's one chap in particular. I actually bought his art before I became his coach,
Right.
and it was from me showing his stuff in my house. He got in touch with me and said, "Oh, actually, I need a coach." And he is so inspiring and a really brilliant creative, but has no confidence. So, um,
Do you find that quite common though with creatives?
yeah, because we're people pleasers. When you're little, it all starts when you're little, and you might drawn like almost perfect circle, or you drew a tree or something like that, and somebody's said, "Oh wow, look what you did! That's amazing!" And that is it. That is the seed. And then after that, we keep doing it, don't we? And we get better at it and better at it and better at it. And you become the person at school who's good at art,
Mm.
and then you meet other people who are good at art, and it
Yeah.
just goes from there, doesn't it? It's definitely a very early serotonin boost that gets you into being a creative, um, professionally, because it's not easy. You wouldn't, you know, you couldn't choose to do this and think it's going to be easy. It's not. It's incredibly hard.
So, who is most likely to benefit from your coaching, aside from those who lack that confidence? Because I think that's an obvious one. Um, I mean, do you find that people lack confidence but don't realize they lack confidence?
No, not so much. They I had somebody come to me this week, and they feel just stuck. And I would say the stuckness
Right.
is something that happens quite a lot. I feel stuck, and just by talking to them, you can see it all opening up. But then the moment you stop, it'll just close again, because you haven't given them any tools to keep
Mm.
growing. And that person wasn't in the creative industries either, but they just have this stuck feel. And I think with all the stuff in the world we're bombarded with, we can just get overwhelmed really, really quickly. And people treat their work and their life really separately. And I don't do that in my coaching. It's a holistic approach. I'm not going to pry into your life if you don't want it, but I will make you aware that your life is part of you,
Mm.
and your work life is part of you. And if you treat it as a whole, as a creative whole, you will get to a solution quicker. And a lot of people struggle with that. Um, but once they start to think of themselves as just completely creative, like a creative ball of energy, it works better when you stop trying to split your life up and compartmentalize everything. And I'm a creative person. I don't know if people who don't do creative roles get the similar feeling. I can only talk about people who do creative roles, but there's definitely trying to split your creative, trying to get all your creativity from your role is really unhealthy. You need to have creativity in your life as well, and it has to, you're one thing, so it
Mm.
has to work together. So if you do photography all day every day and you're doing weddings, for example, you'll be extremely well off, but you might be miserable as sin, because there's, you know, you're having people put their input in, and they're paying, so they want a particular outcome, and that can dampen creativity. As much as we try not to let it can. And then you'll think, God, I hate my job. No, that's your job. Find your creativity somewhere else in your life. So join a group, or set yourself a project, and go out and do other photography that's going to keep you happy. And then this is just work. And then once you're happier, making sure the creativity as a whole is being fed, the more creative work will come in as well. Um, it feeds off each other, and
Yeah, I think so. Certainly from the photography perspective, having personal projects is is huge.
it's
Absolutely
fundamental.
huge. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that a lot of people have lost sight of over the years as well is just because you take a photo doesn't mean you have to share it online.
Yeah,
You know, having that one thing that's just for me. I like it. I'm going to print it and I'm going to stick it on my wall. I'm not going to stick it on the internet and share it
Mhm.
with the world. That's just as me. And I think that's such a huge thing for a creative to have those personal projects. And like I say, just to it's almost it's a mental thing as well, isn't it? It kind of removes that this is me, this is my work, and this is I'm still doing the same thing, but this is for me. It's a passion project.
And it's also play.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And we stop playing
Yeah,
when we're adults. There was a study done by NASA where they were looking to find creative genius in adults. And they found during the study that 2% of adults they considered were creative geniuses. Then they decided to run exactly the same study on children, and they found that all children aged around 5, 98% of them were creative geniuses. So, by the same standard.
yeah,
So, what do we do that's different? One lot of people play and they're learning and they're trying things and they're failing at things, but they're not bothered because they're playing. And the other are trying to monetize every single thing that they do. And you can't keep doing that. It, if you turn off your creativity, you're killing a bit of yourself. So
yeah, absolutely. So for those who are looking for a coach, and I know there will be people that think, well, if it's just talking, then I can go and speak to some friends. The difference being, friends will tell you what you want to hear, whereas a coach, completely independent from your circle, will tell you how it is and give you truths. Truths are often difficult to hear, but need to be heard. Do you agree with
coaches
that?
coaches challenge how you think about things.
Yeah,
Friends, like you say, will listen, comment. You've asked their opinion, they'll give you their opinion. Mentors, you want their feedback. You're asking how they did it, they'll tell you how they did it, and that's them choosing to give you their experience. But coaches, you can get a level of that depending on the coach. But really, the coach is there to change how you think about it in the first place and allowing you to go out into the world and just think differently. Because if you just talk around it and take somebody else's advice, you're not making any change and you're just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. You've you've got two parts to your brain, and one part of your brain is constantly looking for what it thinks you need. And if you don't train it into what you actually need, it just spirals. So coaches help you with changing how your brain sees things, and they give you the tools to move forward in the direction you want to go in. They're not going to tell you where to go. They're not going to train you. It's not training.
mm,
It's giving you tools to help your brain.
fantastic. So if people were going to come to you, is that in do you do offer in person or online or both?
I do everything over Zoom.
Everything over Zoom. Yeah. Well, you're an international business, aren't you? So
Yeah, and I have had coaching clients in the States.
fantastic. So what then sort of can people or businesses expect at the end of the coaching period with yourself? So I'll give you an
They should
example of if
go on
it might
then.
help you. So um, is it a set package that enables individuals or companies to then go off and create their own on their own, or is it an ongoing process? Um, is it? I suppose what I'm trying to say is it a set package where you say, well, we will do it for 6 weeks, or do you sort of say, well, no, we'll do it for as long as you need it?
It's as long as you need it, but there is a minimum for me. It's at least three sessions over 3 months, because there's quite a lot of work to
Yeah.
do. Most people I work with go beyond that, and then it sort of tapers off as they get going on their own, or they just don't need it, or they can't afford it anymore. There's lots of different reasons, but mostly people have got to a point and they've made the decisions that they needed to make, and they're just going to go it alone, and they know they can come back at any time. Yeah, so it does vary on the person. I've had people I've worked with who've decided, right, that's it. I'm actually don't want to do this anymore. But they just kept thinking, oh, I'm self-employed. I've just got to keep plodding on. I've just got to keep working at it. But once their mind's clearer, they've gone, actually, I'm going to get a job.
Yeah.
So, and
Being
there's no
self-employed
wrong
isn't for
answer.
everybody, is it?
No, it's not.
So,
Yeah.
no, wonderful, Vicki. This has been fantastic. We've covered an awful lot in a very short space of time. But before we go, where can people find out more about you or connect with you online?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So Vicki Lovegrove on LinkedIn. My coaching website is vickilovegrove.co.uk, and my graphic design website is 70-3.co.uk. 73 design.
Fantastic. Vicki, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. I know we've had this booked in for a while, and technical issues combined with user issues my side, we've finally managed to do it. So thank you very much for sort of taking your time out to come and sort of have a conversation with me. I genuinely appreciate it, because I think you have a lot to offer businesses and sort of creatives in what it is, and educating them in what it is to enlist someone like yourself. So thank you very much. Folks, if you've enjoyed this episode and would like to hear and see more of this type of this content, then let me know in the comments either whether you would like to see more of this sort of thing. If you know of anybody who would be a good fit for the podcast, that might even be yourself. If it is, get in touch. Let's have a conversation and let's see what we can do. And until next time, be creative, be inspired, be you.